A few years ago, I was having a conversation with Bethel's front of house and studio mixing engineer, Chris Greeley, about how he gets better and learns. After talking for a little while about live mixing, he very casually said, "Oh, I don't get better mixing live," and it blew my mind. To be honest, at first, I kind of just blew this off because I'd been a front of house engineer for years, only doing live events, and I'd clearly gotten better over the years, so I didn't really understand what this meant. But that comment really stuck with me, and I had to figure out what he meant by that. The weird thing is, he's not the only person I've heard say this. About a year or two ago, I was listening to a podcast with two just absolutely top-tier mixing professionals, Chris Raybould and Ken Pooch Van Druten. When asked what their desert island tool would be, it was the same. First, a digital console, and then this. Here's really the concept that they're talking about. When mixing for a live environment, whether that be a live room of people or a broadcast stream where there are people watching live online, you just don't have the opportunity to take many risks. What's the fastest way to learn something? Fail, and then learn from that failure. Keep trying things and fail enough, and pretty soon you'll have a big long list of things that definitely don't work, and a shorter but still very significant list of things that do work. During a real show, you just can't afford to sit there for 5 minutes messing with a reverb, or really tweak those tom gates with the toms just soloed up. You just can't do that. There's way too much stuff going on, and you honestly can't afford to be disengaged with the simple balance of the mix for that long. There's potentially people singing, cheering, and clapping, drowning out the noise of what is actually happening in the speakers, along with the fact that just in a live environment, you're kind of always on the defense, waiting for something to pop out and happen that you need to react to. Basically, it's a horrible environment for creativity and learning. You're really just trying to survive. So here's the solution that pro live engineers all live by: a DAW. Now I know what you're thinking. Great, so what? I'm supposed to just learn how to mix in a DAW and then I'll know how to mix live? No, that's actually not what I'm saying at all. What you want to do is use the DAW for something called virtual soundcheck. By recording the raw inputs of each source before you make any adjustments to it on the console, you're then able to play back these recordings as if there's a full band playing on stage. But no one even needs to be in the building while you're doing this. That feeling of wishing the band would play the song one more time so that you can get another shot at it and just make it right is no longer an issue. Most importantly, this allows you to practice as much as you want. You can loop specific sections that are difficult and work on it until it's right. You're also just able to take risks and allow it to completely fail and have it negatively affect nobody. My favorite DAW to use is Studio One. I've had fantastic stability and reliability with it, where some other DAWs have not been so reliable for me. Granted, in my situation, I'm recording sometimes more than 64 channels at one time for well over an hour. So assuming you're doing less channels, most DAWs should work for this. Almost all the digital consoles have a simple feature that allows you to swap your inputs from your standard stage boxes or inputs on the back of the actual console to your DAW. It's typically about as easy as plugging in a USB cable from the back of your console into your computer. Here's the cable I use for this big ol' fancy Digico, but I've done the exact same process on a simple X32 and it's worked great. I promise you, this is the single most powerful tool you can use to get better. Using virtual soundcheck regularly will improve your mixes so much more than any fancy plugin or big name console could ever do. At the end of the day, both those things are really just tools. And quite honestly, most of the time they end up complicating things more than they help for beginners. Investing your time and maybe even a little bit of money into this is the single best way to improve. That, and of course, learning from how other experienced audio engineers do things so that you can have ideas to use during your virtual soundcheck time to see the biggest improvement possible. Check out this video to see how I process a snare drum so I don't ever have to worry about hi-hat bleed again. Of course, using a technique that I never would have been able to figure out if I didn't have virtual soundcheck.